What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and while I know a lot of you out there love NBA conspiracies, you might also love this mobile game I have to show to you today called Vikings War of Clans. If you've never played Vikings before, this is a pretty good time to start with a lot of your holiday breaks coming up because the new game version is pretty awesome. It's a lot like the PC strategy games of the 90s and 2000s, which a lot of us used to love, and to keep up with the times is finally mobile, so you can easily play it during a 5-minute break at work or just whenever you got a bit of time. The great thing is, Vikings gives you an option to choose your own playstyle, so you can dominate by destroying cities, build secure fortresses, or you can be diplomatic. Personally, I like to go big or go home, so I'm just dominating the cities. All it'll take is about 5 minutes of game time to see why it already has over 10 million players. So to support my channel, you can download this game with the link in the description or in the comment sections below. Using those, you can get your initial protection shield for free and my special bonus of 200 gold for a fast start, so I hope to see you there. And now on to the conspiracies. If you haven't noticed, NBA conspiracies are pretty popular these days. Anytime a team loses a playoff series, there's this mass outcry that the series was rigged, the refs were unfair, the NBA wanted more money, all types of claims. Most of the time the claims are fake, but there are a few instances where the favoritism shown towards one team seem pretty blatant. As I'm talking about this, your mind automatically goes to 2002 and 2006 where the fix seemed obvious and some of the calls made were just kinda indefensible. Which of those years was worse is debatable, but there's plenty of videos that cover those topics already, so I'm not here to debate that. As a matter of fact, I'm here to discuss a potentially fake series that's so unknown I had to find out about it in the midst of a 700-page book. So, have you ever once suspected that Allen Iverson's lone trip to the finals in 01 was aided by the refs? If you're shaking your head no, you're not alone because I never questioned it either. All you or I have ever heard was that Allen Iverson accomplished something amazing in 2001 considering that roster he had. Sure, he had the Defensive Player of the Year, the Sixth Man of the Year, but for the most part, AI was the only one reliable for the offense, which makes it amazing that he was even able to pull off one game in the finals. But what about the series before that against Ray Allen's Bucks that nobody ever talks about? It's amazing that this series is never brought up, but at the time that it happened, it was generating suspicion and anger comparable to what was just experienced a year later with the Lakers. For this video, I want you to know that I'm not arguing whether the series was rigged or not, however, I'm just laying out all the facts and what was said so you can decide for yourself. First of all, many of you might not know it, but Ray Allen was a lot more than a three-point shooter before he joined the Celtics. He was an athletic two-guard that could both get to the rim and shoot, and in this season he was averaging 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists while shooting nearly 50% from the field. This team also had talent such as Glenn Robinson, who was putting up numbers nearly identical to Ray Allen's, and Sam Cassell, who was notching 18 points and 7 assists. Not only was his team more offensively talented than the Sixers right off the bat, but they finished second in the East behind the Sixers with a pretty impressive showing throughout the season. So coming into the Sixers and Bucks conference finals, the series was very much up for grabs, and there was no surprise when it went 7 games, except for the fact that the officiating seemed just a little bit off to people. We'll start with the soft stuff first. Calls can always be debated, but 2 crucial games swung the Sixers' way on controversial calls. There was Game 1 that narrowly went to the Sixers after a questionable lane violation, and Game 4 ended on 2 no calls that could have helped the Bucks pull out the win. Game 4 is particularly important because that was the Bucks' chance to take a 3-1 advantage. While its true calls at the end of games are debatable, being that we know games are called differently as the clock winds down, what outraged people was a sizable free throw difference on top of the questionable calls that seemed to go Philly's way. By the end of the series, the Sixers held their advantage at 186 to 120 in free throws. Anytime there's a major difference in free throws for a series, the natural reaction is to call foul play, no pun intended, but I told you guys I'm gonna lay all the facts out. If you look at the 2001 season, there's an interesting fact that the Bucks were one of the worst teams at playing defense without fouling, ranking 6th in personal fouls per game. Meanwhile, the Sixers were one of the best teams in terms of getting to the line, ranking 4th in free throw attempts per game. Of course, stats don't tell the whole story, and there's no stat for questionable calls, but it does seem to add up that when you put a top 6 fouling team on the court with a top 4 free throw attempting team, that you would get something that looks like this. On top of that, you should consider that the Bucks ranked 25th in the league for getting to the line during the regular season, so that might have been why they didn't get so many free throws. However, as I said, stats don't tell the full story, and there was a strong feeling that the NBA wanted Philly in the finals that year. Another hot point that caused suspicion that year was the curious case of Glenn Robinson not getting to the line. On top of the no call at the end of Game 4, Robinson, who was leading the Bucks in scoring along with Ray Allen, didn't attempt 1 free throw in the series up until Game 5. Here it's worth noting that Robinson didn't spend tons of time at the line as he only attempted around 4 free throws a game anyways, but it just seems odd that he didn't get 1 call until the series was on its backside. But an extreme hot button for conspiracy theorists on top of everything that's been mentioned here was the fact that the Bucks were called for 12 technical fouls during the series and 5 flagrants. The count for Philly, 3 and 0. 12 technicals for one team in any series is insane, especially when the other team only gets 3, which would indicate that one team is being judged with a shorter fuse than the other. But the shock value of the 5 flagrants, that's debatable. When you look at the 2 that happened in the second half of Game 4, by definition you could make the argument that these were warranted, especially the one on Robinson. I bring up these 2 specifically because they cost the Bucks a game that was only lost by 1 point, and it gave the Sixers a 3-2 lead going back to Milwaukee. In Game 6, another flagrant foul occurred, so now we're up to 3 of 5. And this one, Scott Williams clearly elbowed Iverson in his face, but later said he hadn't done this on purpose, as he claimed he was going for Iverson's hip but couldn't get there because he was too fast and small. But the important thing about this foul was the action taken against it. Williams was called for a flagrant here, but he wasn't ejected from the game. He was also Milwaukee's best big man, and after the Bucks won Game 6, the foul was upgraded to a flagrant 2, putting him over the suspension limit for flagrants, and the Bucks would have to win a Game 7 in Philly without their best big man. Now, at this point, I do want to interject that the NBA does seem to do things like this when it's in their best interest. For instance, not too long ago, it's almost impossible to argue that Draymond Green shouldn't have been suspended in the Thunder series when he Mortal Kombat X-Ray kicked Steven Adams. Even though I was cheering for the Warriors to win that series so we could see the Cleveland Golden State rematch, I can't even defend that. Yet, the NBA didn't see it fit to throw him out or punish him because it surely would have meant the end of the Warriors' run. Yet, they still suspended him after the Cavs game where he did something nowhere near as bad to LeBron James, which opened the door for their comeback. Whether you believe Scott Williams deserved the latest suspension for this is up for debate, but it definitely serves as more evidence that the NBA seems to use these situations as a tool when they can. So I've looked at some of the calls that were deemed questionable or unfair to Milwaukee, and I won't even lie, it's difficult for me to see what they were complaining about. Although the totals in this series look to be overwhelmingly favoring Philly, most of what we've seen has an explanation. The foul difference had a reasonable explanation with where the teams were ranked in that regard. We looked at 3 of the 5 flagrants together, and it's hard to argue that they weren't correctly called, and even a debated technical foul by Sam Cassell in Game 5 seemed justified. So it's hard for me to outright say this series was fixed, but out of the people who lived through it, none of them agree with me. After one of the games, Ray Allen said, quote, "I think there's no question about that. The league as a marketing machine, the bottom line is about making money. It behooves everybody for the league to make more money, and the league knows that Philadelphia is going to make more money with LA than we would with LA." So recall that in 2001, Allen Iverson was taking the league by storm. Not only had he won MVP, begun the process of inspiring a new culture, and carried the type of attitude that made people want to watch, but the league did have a good reason to believe Philly would generate more ratings in the series against LA with Kobe and Shaq. Even if the Bucks may have matched up better, they were a smaller market with a quiet, timid superstar in Ray Allen. It didn't matter that the Bucks had swept the Lakers in the regular season or that they had more help on offense. The personality of those two teams simply made it harder to sell to fans. Ray Allen felt those comments were justified by the nature of the fouls called against Milwaukee and the no calls for them. One specific foul that supports his claim came in Game 5 with a minute and a half left while the Bucks were trailing by 1. Ray Allen was attempting to come off of a screen when Jason Caffey was called for setting an illegal screen, but if you watch this replay 100 times, you'd never be able to justify this call, and it cost the Bucks a crucial possession. Ray Allen also made the allegation that David Stern appeared to be cheering for Philly during certain plays, which surprisingly or unsurprisingly isn't the first time Stern had been called out by a player for acting shady. In 1984, during Bird and Magic's first final showdown, Bird accused the league of being rigged after Stern reportedly told a fan that the NBA needed the series to go to 7 games. And no, this isn't BS, this is actually straight out of the Magic and Larry book titled When the Game Was Ours. Bird said, quote, "Stern told a fan that the NBA needed a 7-game series, that the league needed the money. When the commissioner makes a statement like that to a fan, you know it's going to be tough. When Stern makes a statement like that, things are going to happen. You just don't make statements like that and not expect anything out of it. He's the commissioner and he shouldn't be saying anything like that. The NBA wanted a 7th game because they wanted to make more money and they got their wish. There's no reason for me to lie. He said it, he's a man, he'll live up to it. He may say he said it in jest, but I'm out there trying to make a living and win a championship." So when Allen's family members told him they seen Stern eager to see a call go Philly's way, well, it's not really unbelievable. And I'm pretty sure with the climate that surrounds David Stern in the fans' eyes, you guys won't have a hard time believing that one either. The exact quote from the article written during 2001 was, "Allen said members of his family had told him they were sitting across from NBA Commissioner David Stern on Sunday and noticed him stand up to watch a replay after it appeared Allen had gotten away with committing a foul against Iverson that wasn't called. He jumped up real mad like he was cheering for Philly," Allen said. George Karl, coach of the Bucks at the time, claimed to have 3 different NBA coaches call him after Game 5 on the questionable nature of the series. Karl also reported that Sam Cassell had been called by both Kevin Garnett and Rod Strickland regarding the same thing. And to top this all off, by Game 5 of the series, the Bucks had managed to hold Allen Iverson to just 33 of 120 shots. That's 27% for those of you keeping up. By the end of the series, Iverson had averaged 30 while shooting only 33% for an entire series, which is compared to the 42% he was able to shoot for the regular season. So even with the Bucks keeping the MVP at bay, they still managed to lose to a team that many have said had nothing outside of Allen Iverson. This of course was after many questionable moments that swung the series in Philly's favor. So in the end, the Sixers won Game 7 to advance to the NBA Finals, where they pull out a game against the Lakers, who would take part in the Kings series just a year later that garnered so many questions about the legitimacy of the league. Was this series rigged as well? According to Bill Simmons in the Book of Basketball, it's basically the sister series to what happened in 2002, yet you never hear about it from anyone. After looking through it myself, I'll say what I always say when conspiracy theories come up. There does seem to be times when the NBA influences what they can for a desired outcome, and sometimes it's way more obvious than others. Then there's the unspoken rule that we've basically all come to accept, where it seems the league calls games differently at different periods in the game. Case in point, 2013, where Chris Bosh's block on Danny Green at the end of Game 6 would have definitely resulted in 3 free throws had that same thing had happened in the first quarter. For the Bucks and Sixers, the league definitely influences where they could by calling the games tighter on the Bucks than they did Philly, but there's no question that the Bucks also dug themselves in a few holes that cost them as well. As stated before, 3 of their 5 flagrant fouls were probably really flagrants, but it also didn't help them that they couldn't even get a clean screen by the end of the game. So we'll never truly have an answer for this one, but it probably doesn't matter anyways. The league back then was much like it is today, where the top teams in the West are way better than the top teams in the East. So if the Lakers played the Bucks, they probably would have destroyed them, and the only difference is we wouldn't have that classic Game 1 from Allen Iverson that's lived on forever. And that's what I got for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and there's going to be links in the description to lead you where you can read a little bit more about this series, because I'm assuming a lot of you really haven't heard about it. If you did like the video, hit like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. The link to my second channel is in the description and in the comment section as well, so go sub there, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.